This was Harmony Montgomery. Harmony was 5 years old. Harmony will never be 6. Because of this creature that she knew was her own father. And this story is one of the most disgusting things I've ever heard. In December of 2019, Harmony was in the back seat riding with that man when she became incontinent because she's special needs and it's something that just happened. She couldn't help it. And what he did in response was he reached in the back at a red light and beat her severely, so bad that she died. Then he went and got Burger King and ate it in the car with his own daughter's corpse. Stored her body in a cooler at his house for months until March of 2020 when he ended up moving her to a location that we just don't know about. And she wasn't even reported as missing until December of 2021. I don't know how somebody else didn't report her missing within that 2-year time period, but that's what happened. Father has been charged with murder, child abuse, abuse of a corpse, and falsifying evidence. Father pled guilty to abuse of a corpse and falsifying evidence, but he blames the stepmother for the murder. The stepmother is currently doing 18 months for hindering a murder investigation. And in my opinion, both of these animals need to burn.
Things that are scarier at night. Corn mazes.
They never bother me. I
feel happy and fine, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Playgrounds.
I don't need a lot. Coffee's only a dime.
Living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
It's scientifically proven that one of the best ways to see how a guy's mind works, to really get those neurons firing, ask him what's the biggest animal he can beat in a fight, and I promise you'll expeditiously find out what type of man you're dealing with. They even did a survey. Quite a lot to unpack here. Off rip, my eyes immediately drawn to the 8% of people that think they could slapbox a lion and live. I've seen lions take down buffalo over 1,000 pounds, but Buddy thinks because he benches 2 plates he could murk Mufasa. Then you got the 6% that believe they could beat a grizzly bear in a fist fight. Ignoring the fact that if that paw tells you to keep his wife's name out your mouth, you're getting erased from the population. Just look at this. This is why women have a longer shelf life than men. The irrational confidence of thinking you can have any say in the outcome of this situation is wild. And then you got the 17% that think they can fight a chimp. Let me tell you, not only would a chimp beat you like a dirty rug with one hand, a chimp would literally beat you with one hand. As in rip your right arm off and beat you with it. Nah, but the most interesting thing here is the 28% of people that would apparently get folded by Stuart Little. That's more than a quarter of people not confident in their abilities against a rodent. The human mind is an interesting place, the more you know.
This teacher is accused of adding a student on Snapchat and sending him something shocking. You won't believe what happened next. Ricky Lynn Lachlan is a 24-year-old teacher from Missouri. Police received a tip-off about an alleged inappropriate relationship between the teacher and a student. The student was just 16 years old, and Ricky allegedly sent extremely inappropriate videos and pictures of herself to the child. It's alleged that the behaviour then escalated to another level. She is accused of inviting the child to her home while her husband was away, but the child declined. The boy in question was interviewed by police and apparently stated that the teacher had added him on Snapchat. She then allegedly sent nude photos and videos to him. The boy told police that she requested photos back and he obliged. He stated that Ricky had warned him that she could go to prison for the actions, so to delete any photos and videos he had of her. Ricky claims that it was the student that began the conversation and that she had not been aware that he was a minor. Police seized her phone and found a video on there that matched the description of the video that the child had described. Ricky has since been arrested and charged with 6 felony S crimes.
Welcome to Famous Autopsies Part 2. In this series, I'll be breaking down famous celebrity autopsy reports, so this is a massive trigger warning. Today we are going to be talking about Kurt Cobain, who was the lead singer of Nirvana. Kurt Cobain was outspoken about his struggles with mental health and addiction, often including it into his songs, but he also struggled with health issues. He was affected by chronic bronchitis and debilitating stomach pains. On March 31st, 1994, he fled from a rehab facility after just 3 days and took a cab to a gun shop in Seattle where, according to the receipt, he purchased shotgun shells, and on April 8th, an electrician who was meant to install security lighting found what he believed to be a sleeping Kurt Cobain in a studio attached to his house. But upon closer inspection, he saw blood coming from his ears. Sadly, Kurt Cobain was dead at just 27. His external exam revealed numerous needle puncture marks, with associating bruising and an entrance wound in the front roof of his mouth. It's accompanied by several lacerations, some with tissue hanging. The lacerations are likely a result of gases leaving the barrel with strong force. The internal exam revealed that the path of the bullet was upwards, front to back and slightly left to right. His skull sustained several fractures, meaning broken in multiple places in several regions. His brain was transected by the bullet, meaning severed. The lack of blood on scene is due to the fact that the entrance wound was inside of his mouth and the bullet settled in his head, meaning there was no exit wound. Rest in peace to Kurt Cobain, you will always be missed.
The true story behind this mugshot is absolutely disturbing. This is 54-year-old Stanton Lee Pierce, and in 2017 he was sentenced to 40 years in prison for burning a body. So Stanton had been in and out of prison in the past, but in 2016 he got mixed up in a murder. These were the 3 people that were implicated in this murder scheme. There was 37-year-old Rebecca Bond, pictured over here, who actually shot and killed the 62-year-old victim, Louise Martinez. Then there was 56-year-old Lori Stone Perry and Stanton Pierce, and these 2 were convicted of moving the body. 62-year-old Louise Martinez had been missing for a while, and eventually investigators located his burned prize vehicle out in the middle of nowhere. And when I say out in the middle of nowhere, his burned car was really way out in the middle of nowhere in the woods. Obviously they knew something had happened to Louise, but they didn't know exactly what had happened. Well, Louise's body was eventually found also burned in a local cemetery, and from that point on, investigators knew that they were looking at a hardcore murder. Eventually, through investigation, investigators were able to determine that Stanton Pierce had helped clean up the crime scene and had helped move the body to that cemetery. He had collected shell casings after the victim was shot and killed, he had removed bullets from a wall that had gotten lodged in there, and he had even cleaned up blood from the surrounding area. And to finish the story out, Stanton Pierce was sentenced to 40 years in prison. He's going to be over 90 years old when he's finally released.
The differences between male and female serial killers. Males typically kill for sexual gratification, whether that's psychological or physical, and their victim's identity matters less. They typically kill strangers. In contrast, 90% of female serial killers know their victims, and they tend to kill for practical or justifiable reasons, at least in their minds, with the most common motivation being financial gain.
Breaking news, a 12-year-old boy has passed away in less than 24 hours after arriving at a camp for troubled teens. On February 2nd, the 12-year-old boy arrived at North Carolina Wilderness Camp for troubled adolescents. The following morning, on February 3rd, around 8 a.m., staff members discovered that the child was not breathing. Camp counselors immediately performed CPR on the child and called emergency services. When EMS arrived, they said it appeared the child had been deceased for some time. Officials said that the day before he had, quote, been transported per parent by 2 men from New York. The 12-year-old had been assigned to a cabin with other students and 4 staff members. Authorities also added that the, quote, death appeared to be suspicious as he arrived at the camp less than 24 hours prior. An autopsy was performed earlier in the week, and a forensic pathologist said that the boy's death, quote, appeared to not be natural, but the manner and cause of death is still pending. Authorities said they executed search warrants for 2 of the areas of the Trails Carolina and are continuing their investigation. Furthermore, they said that the camp has not fully cooperated. However, Trails Carolina disputed that statement and issued a statement on Thursday through a public relations firm. They said the sheriff's office does not present an accurate account of the facts and they have, quote, fully cooperated. At this time, the child has not been publicly named, and because it does involve a minor, authorities have not provided any further details. To stay up to date on this case, make sure you click the playlist below. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
Oscar Pistorius claimed that he accidentally killed his girlfriend, believing she was an intruder. Let's look at what actually happened. Reva was a South African 29-year-old model and paralegal. Reva was dating her boyfriend of 3 months, Oscar Pistorius, who is a Paralympic athlete. At around 6 p.m. on February the 13th, Reva made her way to his house in South Africa. In the early hours of Valentine's Day 2013, Oscar shot her 4 times through a locked bathroom door. This included a fatal shot to her head. He then broke down the bathroom door with a bat and called police. Oscar claimed that he thought she was an intruder. He claimed he was hot in the night and wanted to get a fan to cool him down. While doing this, he heard a noise in the bathroom that he assumed was an intruder. He said he grabbed his gun and shouted to Reva to call police. He claimed that he did not notice that she wasn't actually in bed next to him. However, neighbors reported hearing a couple arguing at around 2 a.m. They also heard a woman screaming at around 3 a.m. when the shooting took place. Texts between the pair are also very telling. Reva sent him this text after they'd attended a party together. Now you can pause to read, but I am just going to read out some bits that I think are very significant. She said, "You have picked on me incessantly since you got back from Cape Town, and I understand that you are sick, but it's nasty." She also includes a bit that he was accusing her of flirting. And shockingly, she says, "I am scared of you sometimes and how you snap at me and how you will react to me." Heartbreakingly, at the end of the message, she states, "I just want to love and be loved." After Reva's death, Oscar's ex, Samantha Taylor, came forward. She claimed that he would get angry at her for little things like not bringing her plate into the kitchen. He would also be jealous and possessive. In 2014, he was found guilty of culpable homicide. He was only sentenced to 5 years in prison. However, in December 2015, the Supreme Court overruled this verdict. He was then convicted of murder and sentenced to 6 years in prison. This was then extended to 13 years.
Ooh-wee, I'm about to piss a certain demographic off, and I'm honestly okay with that. We can all agree that one of the worst forms of media today is a guy or girl with a microphone, too much time on their hands, and no real friends to bully them out of bad life choices. I'm talking podcasts. And the worst version of that is by anyone who calls himself an alpha male. A fun little fact, cute even. When the term alpha male was first used academically in 1921, they weren't talking about wolves, lions, or even humans. Ain't no way, they was talking about chickens, bruh. Apparently, anthropologist Monica Sumra was studying the hierarchy of chickens when she first used the term, which is also where the term pecking order came from, because higher-ranking chickens will bully, press, stress, and peck lower-status poultry. And when describing the chicken social ladder, they gave the top chicken the first letter of the Greek alphabet, alpha. To add insult to injury, they might not have even been talking about roosters, they were talking about some alpha hens. Alpha wolves in the wild don't exist, and the guy that came up with it spent the rest of his career trying to take it back. Despite what your personal biases might tell you, it's the lionesses that run a pride. But this whole time, alpha males were just taking cues from a pretentious piece of poultry. Moral of the story, you might not be an alpha male, but you are definitely the top cock. The more you know.
I cannot be the only one who hasn't heard about the 10-year-old girl that is facing first-degree intentional homicide charges for stomping on a 6-month-old baby boy's head at a daycare center, y'all. What? Oh my God. Leave a like on this video, follow for more true crime, and check this one out.
A 10-year-old Chippewa Falls girl is facing charges of first-degree intentional homicide in the death of a 6-month-old boy on October 30th.
Injuries sustained by the 6-month boy was not an accident.
This heartbroken father says he can't forgive the 10-year-old girl now accused of stomping on his baby's head.
As opposed to seeing it as a 10-year-old girl, I seen it as the person who killed my son. And she, in my opinion, deserved to be in shackles or handcuffs. She's a criminal.
An imprint of her shoe was found on Jackson's head.
He's having a hard time breathing and his head is swelling.
Jackson fought for his life for 2 days, but succumbed to his injuries.
Now the girl's mother is sharing personal photos and videos.
What's up, guys? Today's my first YouTube video.
Do you think she's been painted as a monster?
Yes, I do.
Is she?
No, she's not. She is beautiful, intelligent, smart, loves to sing, loves to play.
Today in this video, we're gonna be playing hide and seek.
She's been locked up for 9 months. This video shows her getting a ride from her father during a visit at a detention facility. She's smiling, but as Dad puts her down, you can see shackles around her ankles. The girl's family says she suffers from mental illness, and they tried to get her help, but were turned away.
They denied my daughter because she wasn't 12 years old.
She was trying to kill herself.
She had several indentations, yes.
And you couldn't get her help?
I could not. They sent her home because apparently I'd had an age limit.
I cry 7 days a week. 7! When I was 18, I was told I would never have children by a doctor. I thank God he gave me the gift of Ashley. You had no right to take her from me. This is what's left of my daughter. If I want a hug, I have to hug a box and close my eyes and pretend that she is hugging me back. Do you remember texting me? I would never, never do anything to hurt her. I swear on my life. Ashley is my ride and die. Do you remember that? Do you? Ashley was already dead. And discovered. When you text that to me, I am left with nothing but voicemails and videos that I play over and over just to hear her voice, just to hear her laugh.
Oh my God!
Christ!
What?
You found him? Oh. Literally him.
Holy crap!
He's a child welfare specialist.
He works for the Oklahoma Department of Human Services.
It literally says report suspected child abuse.
Wow.
The park ranger being a child welfare specialist is worst case scenario. We entrust these people to take care of our society's most vulnerable. And instead, he's taking advantage of them and he's exploiting them.
Hello?
Hi, Major Flowers. In the context of Oklahoma, what does a child welfare specialist do?
They're the ones that like Child Protective Services. They're the ones that remove kids out of homes that are being abused and beaten and sexually abused and neglected. They're the ones that put the kids in state custody. In Oklahoma, that's what CPS is. It's Oklahoma Department of Human Services.
Okay.
He's around kids all the time. They're supposed to be there to protect kids.
It's like the worst job he could have. Yeah. I will not breathe easily until he's in custody. I'm proud of the team, I'm proud of the work that we do, but none of that matters until he's in custody.
Oh, oops. Are you okay? You fall down or what?
Oh, you need a soda, or? Hello, true crimers. This is the case of Voldemort's lesser-known eighth Horcrux, William Clyde Gibson. Viewer discretion is advised. Oh, God. This looks like the reject pile at G.I. Joe. William was born in 1957 in Raleigh, North Carolina. According to him, he had a relatively decent childhood. His dad was an alcoholic, but he said he was never abused by his parents. In fact, he was quite spoiled by them. At first, he was getting bullied a lot in school, but then the tables turned when he kind of buffed out, and he became the bully. William ends up dropping out of school altogether. He commits a series of, small petty crimes. He joined the army as a mechanic. He then became addicted to illegal substances. He was imprisoned for a year for stealing a car. By 1991, he ends up committing sexual assault. He also gets involved in a hit and run, and he spends some more time in prison. And then, wow! Look at it! It's gorgeous! It's a shame he turned out to be such a shit. Well, by 2002 or so, his life of petty crimes would turn to murder. On October 10th, 2002, he met this woman here, 44-year-old Karen Hodella. They met at a bar. Then she ends up going back to, his apartment, and this is in Jeffersonville, Indiana, by the way. According to him, they get into an argument over prescription pills where he ends up punching her in the face, then takes out a pocket knife and repeatedly stabs her. She dies, sadly, and then he just dumps her body just like garbage. William then gets a tattoo. God, he looks like he uses the phrase yeehaw far too often. He got a tattoo of the date he killed her, and then an image of a knife. Karen's body was found a few months later. A few weeks after he committed the murder, he found himself back in jail because he was driving intoxicated. Over the next couple of years, he ends up in and out of trouble. He steals money from people. He's just in and out of jail, but he's never linked to the murder. On March 24th, 2012, he finds himself in another bar. There, he meets 35-year-old Stephanie Marie Kirk. Much like the first individual he murdered, he brought her back to his apartment where they got into a fight over prescription drugs. He then proceeds to beat her, sexually assault her, and then he broke her neck and killed her, and then tried to bury her in his backyard. On April 18th, 2012, 75-year-old Christine Wittes pays William a visit. She used to be a friend of his mom, who had passed away a few years prior. She actually was always there for William. She helped him. She gave him money. How did he pay her back? Well, on that day that she visited, he sexually assaulted her and strangled her until she was dead. And then he mutilated her body. He cut off one of her breasts. Then he just left her on the floor of his garage. He then stole her car. Her body would be found, and William was then arrested because he was caught driving her car intoxicated. I don't know when exactly this happened, but I hope it hurt. While in custody, he would just basically admit that he killed Karen Hodella. Then he said that he also killed Stephanie Kirk, and he led police to her body. And then obviously he was connected to Christine Wittes. And then he was charged with 3 counts of murder. He tried to claim that an evil took over him, that he was mentally not aware of what he was doing. He's crazy. But the jury didn't buy it. He first goes on trial for the murder of Christine Wittes. He's found guilty, and he's sentenced to death. His response to that was, oh well. He said it was no big deal. He then pleads guilty to the murder of Karen Hodella. Then he goes on trial for a 3rd time, this time for Stephanie Marie Kirk's murder. Before that murder, he did this. He had death row ×3 tattooed to the back of his head. The courts had to make him grow his hair back out so that the tattoo would be covered before he went to trial again. He was found guilty, and he was sentenced to death again. He, of course, has tried to appeal, even though he's confessed and he pled guilty to some of these, and he's just a full-on wackadoo. He's been interviewed a lot of times since, and he's now claimed that he's murdered 10 times more people than he was found guilty of. At one point, he said he's committed at least 30 murders across many different states, but nothing has been able to confirm that. William Clyde Gibson still remains on death row, waiting for them to give him the business. God, that fucking mustache. Ugh.